They are yearning, I can tell you, yearning as a franchise for any tight end that can help them in any way at all, blocking, receiving, in any way. Logan Thomas, it was fun. It was a fun, little ride, but that ride was over a long time ago,
Thank you
and
for your
the
service.
theme park closed, and you're just sitting on the ride with no workers around to hit the on button. So, all right, we are just days away from the NFL draft. So, it's time to talk about what will be the best and worst landing spots for your favorite rookies. That's right. You got the 105, the 110,
That's
and you're
right.
thinking about a certain player going to a certain team. Well, what would be the best case scenario for you? And what would be the worst case scenario for you? We are ranking the landing spots for prospects at different positions. Let's start at the quarterback spot, Badaki, and we'll just go back and forth here.
Yeah.
I'll just say we'll do top 6 for every position at minimum, and we'll go back and forth, and we'll see what our collective top 6 actually looks like. But starting at quarterback, in my opinion, the best landing spot for a quarterback, I think you might agree, is probably the Minnesota Vikings.
No question.
A quarterback that we might not love in our scouting grades could shoot up draft boards just because they land in this system. And yes, you've heard it before, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, and all of that is true. You're joining a team with incredible weapons all around you. But I think to an even extent, we're not actually talking about Kevin O'Connell. Kevin O'Connell being the head coach, the offense that he brought over from Los Angeles when he took over this team a couple years ago, this team went from a middle of the pack passing offense to a high volume passing offense. So any quarterback that is connected to Kevin O'Connell, to that mind, who has learned under, the leadership that he's learned for NFL offenses, connected to those weapons is going to be my favorite landing spot for quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, completely agree. And like you said, all those weapons that are there going into the 2024 season for whichever incoming rookie is going to be there, that could be a Bo Nix, that could be a Michael Penix, maybe people that somebody don't even like. What if they take a chance on someone even later that we're not expecting? We might have to potentially reevaluate hypothetically for the second round. Not saying it's going to happen, but if Spencer Rattler goes to the second round to the Minnesota Vikings, we all have to come back and say, okay, how far do we want to take this, right? I mean, anything could potentially happen.
It feels like those picks, though, are going to end up being a quarterback.
One of those picks is our expectation is that they're going to be moving up to at least a top 5 pick there. But once again, another hypothetical that we like to bring here. A guy for me, or a team for me, that I believe is a phenomenal landing spot is your Washington Commanders. Coming in, Terry McLaurin, you think of the opportunities in the weapons here, right? Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson is also on this backfield. They bring in Austin Eckler. You have Dan Quinn, who, a defensive mind of head coach. We saw what he did with the Dallas Cowboys with Cliff Kingsbury, who has opened up the floodgates in the past there with Kyler Murray, which was a high-performing offense back there with Kyler Murray when he first was there. Washington Commanders has the 2nd pick overall in the NFL draft, whether that's Jaden Daniels, Drake May, whatever that looks like for them. I personally believe the foundation that the Washington Commanders team has currently going in for a rookie quarterback is one of the top 3 best places to go currently right now in the NFL.
All right, I definitely get it. They're definitely my top 6, but I actually have them ranked as the 4th best landing spot. So this will be interesting as we go through this process. I'm surprised you don't have Chicago ahead of Washington. I definitely would have Chicago ahead of Washington, considering the pieces that they've put in place. Obviously, we know they have DJ Moore, but they added Keenan Allen. They added DeAndre Swift. Their offensive line is improving. And we don't know exactly what they're going to do with the 9th overall pick, but that could also be a Rome Odunze potentially, maybe Brock Bowers if things get weird. So I would personally have the Bears as the 2nd best landing spot. It's an incredible situation that Caleb Williams is likely going to land into. But I guess I just see that as a more solidified room, a better overall environment to step into than my Washington Commanders.
Sure. I think you can definitely view it 2 different ways. You think of a new offensive coordinator that's coming in there with Shane Waldron with the Chicago Bears. I think they have a little bit more consistency from what we've seen out of Cliff Kingsbury. Now, yes, it's probably an overall better foundation when you think of DJ Moore and Keenan Allen, these proven wide receivers that the Bears have. But I think that also, in my opinion, should weigh in Cliff Kingsbury's favor when you think of maybe, okay, what evens out here? Because, yeah, you may have these two proven wide receivers, but we haven't seen, I mean, me personally, with Shane Waldron, yeah, what does that look like? How's that going to look like for Caleb Williams, which we've seen?
We did just have Geno Smith finish as a top 5 quarterback 1 year removed from that, right?
And
so
it's
possible.
It definitely is possible, and I'm not discrediting him, but I think we see more consistency with Cliff Kingsbury, and I think maybe that's what I'm weighing potentially a little bit more in his success in the past. Okay. But yes, look, I think both of these teams are phenomenal landing spots for any NFL team to potentially go to, or any, rookie quarterback to potentially go to here.
Sure.
I actually have a sleeper one that I don't personally think that anyone is talking about, and I don't think you personally would have on this list. I kind of went deep dive here, and this may switch things up, but the Denver Broncos. It may not be a deep dive. It may not. Maybe
that doesn't sound like a deep dive to me.
Maybe
man.
some people will say
they need a quarterback.
They need a quarterback, but the foundation is not amazing, right? You think of who is there, and you think of what this team is going to potentially be having for this rookie quarterback, a Marvin Mims or Cortland Sutton. They don't have a second-round pick going into this year in the 2024 draft, but they have Javonte Williams. But Sean Payton, I still believe in him, and I think when he came into this team with Russell Wilson and Jerry Jeudy and all these other foundational pieces, he says, let me see what I can do. And I feel like he was clearly being forced to try and make things work without actually putting his own touch to it. And that's exactly what we saw in the first couple of years there with Russell Wilson. Yeah. Obviously you saw the 1 year without Sean Payton. Then you saw the 1 year with Russell Wilson. They say, you know what? We're willing to take this cap hit because we're starting from the ground up. And this is the first time you could potentially see that here. So once again, not the best foundational pieces, but Sean Payton with the offensive mind and what he's done in the past, I think makes this a low-key, honestly, juggernaut type of landing spot for any quarterback to potentially go to.
I think I see it differently, but I hear you. I love the bold take. The Broncos are not in my top 6 as far as landing spots. Yeah. And it really does have to do with if they take a quarterback, that means they're doing it in the first round, most likely, like a quarterback that we care about.
100%.
And that means the earliest opportunity they have to improve their wide receiver room is round 3. It's a good wide receiver class, but I just think I loved Bryce Young as a prospect. Bryce Young stepped in a situation where his wide receiver room was barren of talent. I don't think it's that dissimilar to whoever the quarterback would be for the Broncos. I think Bryce Young is better than what he showed, but his environment really hurt him last year. Clearly, Sean Payton is a better coach than what Bryce Young had, but you talked about a sleeper team for the Broncos. I actually think I have the sleeper team that no one is talking about. And it's unlikely that this team addresses the quarterback position, but if they did, we would all instantly fall in love with it. That is the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle Seahawks are actually my third favorite spot for a quarterback.
I have them on the list, by the way. So they are in my top 6 because that's who I have next. So that's good.
So I have the Seahawks ahead of the Commanders as a landing spot and ahead of the Broncos. They're my third favorite landing spot, and it's quite simple. Imagine one of your favorite Imagine J.J. McCarthy stepping into that situation. Imagine Michael Penix stepping into that situation with DK Metcalf, with Jackson Smith and Jigba, Tyler Lockett at the back end of his career, Ken Walker, Zach Charbonnet, the offensive line that they've started to kind of build around there, and obviously a new head coach coming out of Washington in an air raid system. It wasn't technically air raid, but they threw the ball all over the yard with their 3 successful wide receivers. The Washington Huskies head coach, that's now their offensive coordinator. So I don't know, man. I think the Seahawks is a sneaky, really good landing spot. I mean, we talk about how much people love the Vikings. I don't think they would do it because they traded for Sam Howell, but if the Seahawks went quarterback, I think we'd fall in love with that.
I think so as well. I mean, they have a top 16 pick in the NFL draft currently. Do they take a chance with Bo Nix? Is Michael Penix there? And do they take a chance with Michael Penix in the first round? Do they trade back up into... I mean, look, I know we've been talking about these QB hit rates in the second round, but I will still be excited. Even though these guys don't hit, I would still personally be excited if a Bo Nix or Michael Penix Jr. is taken in the second round to the Seattle Seahawks. And I know, like I said, I know the hit rate from what you've brought in your data.
This is just about landing spots. It doesn't matter about hit rates.
100%. I know like a lot of people would say that, but I'm just saying like I would definitely be taking a chance on any quarterback that goes to the Seattle Seahawks there. So I would completely agree.
Round this out for us. Who you got here? Who else have we not talked about?
I have a couple different ways I actually could go because I kind of stretched it out. I have seven, my top favorite here. I'm going to choose the one that's more controversial, just to have some conversations. And that is the Los Angeles Rams I'm right with you. The Los Angeles Rams going and taking a quarterback. Obviously, Matthew Stafford is an older quarterback. We've seen him have these injury histories, and the foundation around here with Sean McVay and what he has done with these surprising quarterbacks. Not surprising quarterbacks, but what he's done. You saw what Baker Mayfield did, 2 years or a couple years ago when Matthew Stafford went down. He had a nice little win streak there. Look, if the Los Angeles Rams, who has a 19th pick in the NFL draft, once again takes a shot on one of these Michael Penix or Bo Nix, once Matthew Stafford is gone, the Los Angeles Rams could be a phenomenal landing spot here with Kyron Williams, Puka Nacua. Yeah, you may have Cooper Kupp there, who is an older player, but a good foundation that they can work with if Matthew Stafford goes down, or maybe Matthew Stafford retires at the end of the 2024 season.
Yeah, great mentor to learn behind, a great head coach to continue your career with. I like the landing spot. I'll just honorable mention the Raiders into that last one. They were last on my list. All right, moving on to the running back position. I believe wholeheartedly there are a clear top two here. And I'll see if you agree with me or you don't.
Okay.
But I'll mention my number one landing spot for running back is the Los Angeles Chargers. And it has everything to do with everything we've heard and everything we've seen historically from the coaching staff that is now in the Los Angeles, they're now there doing their thing. Obviously, Jim Harbaugh, Greg Roman. You look at the history of these teams. You can go back to college for Michigan, but you can go back to even the NFL teams that Harbaugh was in control of. You can look at the teams that Greg Roman has, kind of done his thing with. The run game is important. Physicality is important. I'm assuming that the entire identity of this team is going to change. That's why you're seeing everyone sell Justin Herbert way too low, which they shouldn't be doing. But I believe any running back round 2, round 3, this is a team that is in a prime spot to take a premier running back. And I know they just signed J.K. Dobbins. I talked about that in one of my stash videos. It ended up that they did sign him. But still, Dobbins and Gus Edwards is not enough to stop you getting excited about one of these rookies, of Trey Benson, of Jonathan Brooks.
Yeah.
If Blake Corum reunites, I think the Chargers are definitely one of those top 2 landing spots.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. They're definitely one of my top 2. I guess let's see if we are the same with our second one, and that's the Dallas Cowboys for me.
100%.
The Dallas Cowboys, which we've seen a phenomenal offensive line here. They literally have Rico Dowell and Deuce Vaughn. They should be going out and getting a running back in this draft class, and we've seen the history of success with the Dallas Cowboys in the past here. And Jerry Jeudy loves to make either a big splash or get somebody in and have an established the run type of offense. And that's exactly what a Trey Benson and or Jonathan Brooks could be for the Dallas Cowboys here. So both of these two teams are my 1-2 punch.
Yeah, I agree. They're the clear top 2 in this class. These are where you want a running back landing if you love that running back. All right, 3rd and 4th is very close for me.
Okay.
But I put the Cardinals as 3rd, and it could have been my 4th team very easily ahead of them, but just thinking about this new regime, Jonathan Gannon stepping in, James Conner on the last year of his contract, if they went running back in round 2 or 3, it's a very clear indication to us that thank you, James Conner, for your service next year. Maybe eventually sometime in the season you see that running back start to, kind of take over that role at some point. But being a part of an offense that we believe is about to add an elite wide receiver, that might open things up for the run game. And so I just think the Cardinals, it's more of a lack of any solidified guy in the future with James Conner being there.
Sure.
And also what I project to be a better offense for years to come.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, that's who I had next there with my rankings here. My next one for me, I'm not sure where you sit. I think there's a couple of different ways that we could potentially go here, but I have the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah, exactly where I was thinking.
You think of this backfields and they get rid of Josh Jacobs and he signs with the Green Bay Packers, and now we have in the backfields Zamir White, Alexander Madison. This is a team that needs to go out and invest in the running back here. Antonio Pierce the head coach for the Las Vegas Raiders, is all about the Raiders way. What is the Raiders way? Pounding the football on the ground, toking the ball as many carries as you possibly can, and they could potentially get a workhorse running back coming in this draft class. The Raiders, for that running back room and for that running back alone, is going to be phenomenal. So this is one of the best landing spots here for a running back.
I absolutely agree. I love the Raiders, like you talked about, that mentality that Antonio Pierce, adopts. You have heard him in the past talk about how important Josh Jacobs was to that roster. So it's unlikely they go an important running back, but if they did, I think we'd all be very excited about it.
No question.
Next team on my little spot here would be the Minnesota Vikings. And it's not all that dissimilar to the Cardinals, but you're actually joining a better offense, depending on who the quarterback is in Minnesota. But Aaron Jones hasn't been able to stay healthy as of recent. He's only on a 1-year contract. He is very close to 30 years old anyway. So I do think it's his role straight away. But like, let's say if a Kendre Miller for example, if he was in Minnesota, I'd be so excited about that right now and thinking about what he could be in that offense. So we saw all the years of success with Dalvin Cook. I know the offense has changed, but I think they could look to like that type of running back who is a threat in the air too. I think they might target that in this draft. Someone who is not just so. I don't imagine them going like a Braylon Allen or Audric Estime, for example.
Sure.
But a Bucky Irving in Minnesota, like that could be super interesting when you talk about like the Kyron Williams way, because we don't think Bucky's going to be drafted very high. Or even a Jonathan Brooks if they do go high. That guy who's a dynamic threat in the air and on the ground. So who's your last team here in this tier?
My last team, I don't think this is too exciting, but I think they are deserving to be in this tier, in my personal opinion. And that's New England Patriots. The New England Patriots, Ramondre Stevenson, Antonio Gibson. I know they signed and bring in Antonio Gibson. This is a whole new head coaching regime with Jared Mayo and the new offensive coordinator as well. We've seen a couple mock drafts that go for one of these running backs to go. If maybe it's Trey Benson or Jonathan Brooks, if either one of these two running backs go to the New England Patriots, it automatically switches our thought process of Ramondre Stevenson. And I think this is one of the best landing spots because there's no weapons around, right? You have Demario Douglas, Juju Smith. That's nothing to work with. And if they do take a quarterback with their third pick overall, they could get a wide receiver in the second round. But if they go in a different direction, then that running back can be one of the main focal points for this offense. And maybe this is how I'm envisioning for the New England Patriots.
Yeah, and just a little shout out to your New York Giants. I think they also are deserving to be at the back end of that tier. Not a good offense to be a part of, but not a scary backfield to compete with.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to wide receiver.
There's a lot.
There are so many teams that I think could be deserving of the number one spot here. There's two very obvious ones, and there's one that is also obvious but might not ring out as true in people's heads because they don't have a top pick. But I think it's got to be the Buffalo Bills at the number one spot. Who is taking over for Stephon Diggs? Not to say that they'll put the same output out, but I don't want to pre-say any other teams, but if the Bills were in the top 10, I don't think anyone would say they weren't the best landing spot. It's just because we're envisioning certain names to other teams, and I totally get that. But I'm thinking about the Bills, Josh Allen. What wide receiver? Do they trade up for someone? Do they stick and pick one of these names that we really love at the back end of the first round? Is it an Adonai Mitchell? Do they move up for Brian Thomas?
Sure.
Do they somehow find their way in the top 10? Unlikely, and get in a Dunze. But I think if we were to say, what is the one landing spot? Everyone's favorite wide receiver is typically Marvin Harrison Jr. Put him in one team right now. Where would you put him? I don't know. I think most of us would say the Bills.
Okay. I mean, look, I think the Bills are on. They're definitely one of my top two. I personally, and maybe because is what you're saying, they have the top pick, is Los Angeles Chargers. That is my second one. And maybe the best, I mean, you have to think about it, though. That you had Stephon Diggs, like both of these guys, Josh Allen and Justin Herbert, both had phenomenal wide receivers around them. I think no matter what, this is the top, the 1-2 punch. Doesn't matter who goes first, we know that there's going to be success from these wide receivers when they are attached to one of these quarterbacks here. So I completely agree. Maybe it's the Buffalo Bills or the Los Angeles Chargers. For me, it'd be the Chargers. I have the Chargers, then the
Okay.
Bills here. But I don't think you can go wrong either way, no matter the pick. But now you might have to lean on talent. Like we would rather have.
Oh, if the Chargers go wide receiver in the top 5, I'm assuming they have Marvin and Malik. That's why I'm saying take the name out of it.
Yeah, take the name out of it.
Take the name out of it.
Get it.
You know, you're doing a fantasy pool on Madden, like but the quarterback stays on the team.
Sure.
But I think my third, and I actually think is deserving of fighting for the number 1 spot, is Arizona Cardinals. We've seen Kyler Murray have a ton of success with fantasy wide receivers in the past. Now, of course, I still prefer my quarterback being Herbert or Allen when it comes to fantasy success, but Kyler's right up there. We know how good he's been in the past. They have no clear competition ahead of him. Similar to the Bills, they have a good tight end, Kincaid, McBride, but there is no clear number 1 in their wide receiver room. They are lacking a lot there. So that would be my clear top 3, and I think all 3 of them could battle for the number 1 spot.
Yeah, completely agree. No doubt about it. I think for me, I will have to be my New York Giants.
Okay.
That is next for me. We can go other directions. I just don't see these teams going out and getting a wide receiver. So maybe that's I'm also getting skewed a little bit. But yes, the New York Giants, who don't have you don't have a quarterback. You have Daniel Jones or Drew Lock, but you don't have a clear number 1 in Jalen Hyatt and Wan'Dale Robinson. Insert one of those top wide receivers with a top 6 pick. That becomes a very, very favorable wide receiver in a fantasy perspective and a favorable landing spot for them because you know the type of production that they're going to be getting, even if it's bad. Even if it's terrible quarterback play, you know they're going to be getting peppered with opportunity here. So I think my Giants is deserving for the next one.
Volume would absolutely be there. I might have one team ahead of them, but I'm right there with you. The team I would have ahead of them is the Jacksonville Jaguars. I just think that is probably a overall better landing spot. Now, the Giants could get one of those top 3 names, Adunze, Marvin, Malik. But again, taking names out of it, at least I know that the Jags have Trevor Lawrence. I think he is a franchise quarterback moving forward. So at least that part of the equation of scoring fantasy points is a little bit more sorted out for you rather than is it Daniel Jones? Is it Drew Lock? Do we take Penix in round 2? Is it Nix in round 2? You know, so I had the Jags just one spot ahead, but I like both of those landing spots.
Yeah, look, and that definitely makes sense there for that team. Man, there's so many ways you can go here at the wide receiver position. And I kind of want to make a case for a team that I don't think we see a lot in the fantasy community that is a favorable landing spot. And I know this team took a wide receiver in the first round last year. I think they can do it again this year. And this may be completely thrown off for some people, but I think that is the Baltimore Ravens.
Okay.
I know that doesn't make a lot of sense for a lot of people because you have Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, but you get rid of OBJ. And there's a huge void. What's happening with Rashad Bateman? There's a whole nother year of Rashad Bateman going to break out. They need more opportunities and more weapons. Yes, they have Derrick Henry, but you make the push, and this is probably one of the best landing spots for a wide receiver that can go into opportunity depending on who that is. Now, I know we may disagree here because you don't love Zay Flowers to the Baltimore Ravens.
I love Zay Flowers. Hate the landing spot.
Yeah, but I think the landing spot would be favorable in my opinion.
I just don't see the offense changing. You know, it's still going to be the same offense, and I don't think where the Ravens are, someone's going to surpass Zay Flowers. So I don't know. I actually think the last little honorable mention here, the Patriots. I think they're low-key a really good landing spot because they're likely to go quarterback in the 3rd overall pick. But in round 2, who is that Patriot? Is it Ricky Pearsall? Is it Lab McConkey? Like, think about those guys going through rookie camp with a rookie quarterback, no one to compete with really for targets. I think the Patriots are a low-key spot too.
Yeah. I would say.
And I also would say the Broncos are interesting, but
the Broncos are interesting. I was going to throw another honorable mention, and maybe we can close it out. Is the Panthers? I know they got Deontay, Adam Thielen. I think the Panthers are a really good opportunity for one of these wide receivers to go to. We've seen Xavier Worthy go there. We've seen Lab McConkey go there. That is a phenomenal landing spot for a wide receiver as well, in my opinion.
I agree. All right, at tight end, I think the Chargers are the best landing spot for so many reasons. I think they stand alone on an island as far as like the premier spot for a tight end. Obviously, Greg Roman, we know the history he's had with successful fantasy tight ends, how important the tight end is in his receiving core, if you will. But also just the pure lack of weapons anywhere.
Sure.
There's not really great tight ends in this class, but there's some decent ones. I mean, if Ben Sinnott goes round 3, that's super interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, we would all want Brock Bowers there, but it's unlikely to happen unless they trade back. But I think that's my number one spot for any tight end.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. I think I'll have an obvious one here. I think it would be the Cincinnati Bengals.
I agree.
That comes into this offense. Obviously, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. We've seen so many mocks early on in the offseason of Brock Bowers going to this Bengals offense. And if that is the case, or even like you said, the Ben Sinnott, or insert one of these tight ends that may not be exciting, but put him in this offense that could be another weapon for Joe Burrow, it just makes things a lot more exciting coming into this year for the Bengals.
Yeah. I'll put the Commanders here at 3. They are yearning, I can tell you, yearning as a franchise for any tight end that can help them in any way at all.
Sure.
Blocking, receiving, in any way. Logan Thomas, it was fun. It was a fun, little ride, but that ride was over a long time ago. And
Thank you for your service.
theme park closed, and you're just sitting on the ride with no workers around to hit the on button. So Commanders number 3 for me.
Commanders is number 3 here. I have another one which I was pulling my hair about here, and I don't love it because of how negative I've been talking about this offense all off season. And I think it's still the same, but we have to recognize the potential opportunity. That's the New Orleans Saints.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you have them on this list, but
I don't, but I'm curious.
the New Orleans Saints don't have any other weapons, respectfully, outside of what feels like Chris Olave. Yeah, you have
Sure.
Kendre Miller, you have Alvin Kamara, who's on his down trajectory as a running back here, but there's no one else in this offense. Insert if Ben Sinnott goes to the Saints in the second round, we're saying, okay, Derek Carr has produced fantasy relevant tight ends in the past in Darren Waller, right? We've seen that for multiple years now. Is the talent the same? Probably not. But if Brock Bowers falls to New Orleans Saints, which we've seen a couple mock drafts, what if they trade up? They have the 14th pick. Can they trade up to the 10th pick to get Brock Bowers with the Jets? Sure. Right? That changes a lot of conversations. Now, I don't love it because of the quarterback play, but the opportunity and the workload that's going to be carved out for insert tight end here could be something we need to be reevaluating.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I think the Colts as well, in a similar breath, a landing spot that we've talked about as not favorable. I've mostly meant that for the wide receiver position. I do think they could still use a tight end that separates himself as a true weapon in the passing game. And tight ends can be successful just through touchdowns. It doesn't have to be through targets. Obviously, that's what we want. But, Cole Kmet had, a top 5 year, and he was nowhere near top of the league in targets because of the touchdowns that he got.
Sure.
But ultimately, this all comes down to Shane Steichen. We've seen him in the past, utilize tight ends heavily within his offense. And so I still think if Brock Bowers goes there, I'm not going to write off Brock Bowers. But is there a couple other names here that stand out as we wrap up?
Yeah, I think the main one that we haven't spoken about are the Jets. Jets could potentially getting another weapon going alongside there with Garrett Wilson there. Aaron Rodgers are trying to make a stretch. Is that Brock Bowers or insert one of these tight ends? We've seen the success in the past there. So I think the New York Jets are also a decent landing spot.
I'd also just give a shout out to the Panthers, just simply because they have no one. So
yeah,
it's just clear opportunity for opportunity's sake. All right, for the sake of time, for the worst landing spots, we are going to quick fire through these bad boys. So I'll start at the quarterback. I think probably the worst landing spot is your New York Giants. I know that sounds pretty harsh, but let's just face it. The Patriots are right up there. But I'll just quickly say that if the Giants get a quarterback, I think they could move up. And that means they don't have any, second, maybe no third round pick to kind of add to that wide receiver room. Whereas if the Patriots, I know they're a terrible landing spot, but at least they can stay put and then, add a wide receiver in round 2 or round 3. But did you have the same thought process there?
I had the same thought process for the Patriots. I know we briefly spoke about it a little bit with the Giants. I think that changes in my head a little bit just because of a couple of different things, but I don't want to weigh too much on those thought processes since we are short on time. But they are on this list, but more towards the end. So they're not one of the worst.
Would also just quick shout the Broncos. I know we probably disagree on this because you mentioned them as one of the better landing spots, and it's everything that I said when we were having that conversation. I think about Bryce Young stepping into a wide receiver room with no one of note. Adam Thielen. I know you have Cortland Sutton over there, but there's really not much to get excited about. So that just concerns me, as well as their lack of draft capital to improve it. How about running back? What do you think is like the worst landing spot for running back? And we try to take out some of the obvious teams for quarterbacks and some of these positions.
Yeah, I'm really trying to envision some of these terrible landing spots, but for me at the moment, it will probably have to be the Saints. Okay. Alvin Kamara.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, Alvin Kamara, Kendra Miller. When is that opportunity going to come for one of these running backs? I don't love, and I know a lot of people want opportunity for a team like New Orleans Saints because of Alvin Kamara's aging, but this is going to cause so much more confusion with Jamal Williams as well. I haven't even mentioned him, right? So Jamal Williams, Kendra Miller, and Alvin Kamara in that backfield. Another worst landing spot for me, I'm not sure where you have him, is the Kansas City Chiefs. I know and we may disagree. I know everyone wants the Chiefs to maybe draft another running back, or, hey, can you get Isaiah Pacheco in a rotation? Isaiah Pacheco has been successful, but what we know is that Patrick Mahomes does not. He likes to keep the ball in his own hands and throw the ball to his wide receivers, which they just added more and most likely potentially going to add another one in this draft, which is stacked at the wide receiver position. So those are my top two for me at the moment.
Okay. I like the Saints. I wouldn't agree with the Chiefs. And I just think in totality that entire system has changed. You know, you look at the Chiefs this year, the system completely changed. They relied heavily on the run game, and it would interest me if a running back went there. But I get it. I actually think the Niners are a much worse spot.
Sure.
They are my number one worst spot. And I know it sounds crazy. Well, yeah, obviously CMC is there. This is obvious, Zach. But I feel like the Niners draft a running back in round 3 or 4 every single year. You guys know what I mean? Like, it feels like it's a yearly tradition for them. The comp pick, it's a running back, And it could be one of the running backs that you like. And that running back could be in running back purgatory. Who else you got here?
Yeah, man, there's so many players. Let's go with the Lions here. I think this one's pretty obvious. Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery here. If they draft a running back that we remotely love, maybe if it's another rotational back, this is going to be a completely dead asset for one of these running backs to land.
All right, I'm also just going to quickly add the Patriots. So I know we disagreed on that, but I actually don't love a running back there. I could see it, but I do think Stevenson is still going to play a really important role in that offense. And if that coaching staff decided we want to add Antonio Gibson, that concerns me. I think they have a plan for him. So we might just see a little bit differently on that. I'd also add the Seahawks and the Falcons. And, it's a bit ridiculous. These guys probably aren't going to add one. But, if you do think about running back round 5 or something, one of these guys that we really love, what if a Bucky Irvin ends up in Atlanta? Like, you're going to hate that.
Yeah.
That's my running back room, though. Can we move on wide receiver, or do you have anyone else?
No. Yeah, but let's go to wide receiver.
All right, I think Bucks stood out to me as one of my least favorite landing spots just because I don't think Baker Mayfield is the type of quarterback to support 2 fantasy stars. And we saw that Godwin was really difficult to start in fantasy last year. But also, Mike Evans just signed long-term. Godwin's on a contract. I just don't see much room for a breakout. Who else you got?
Yeah, let's go with the Minnesota Vikings. I think this one's, once again, pretty obvious of what's going to happen. Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. If there's another weapon that comes to this offense, I feel like that's also going to be another dead asset here. I would also throw in my personal opinion, the Miami Dolphins as well.
Okay, sure.
Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill. We've just seen Xavier Worthy mocked in our last live stream. Xavier Worthy getting mocked to the Miami Dolphins. Where does the production come from? With Tyreek Hill eating already into Jalen Waddle's production. But what happens if you get somebody in the second, third round that we like a Jermaine Burton or your Jalen McMillan goes to Miami Dolphins? We would hate that because of where's that opportunity going to be carved out from?
Yeah, this might be controversial, but I don't like the Bears, man. Like I'll be honest, I just don't like that landing spot.
I like it.
I already think that you're like, here's my fundamental issue with it. Okay, number one, you have a rookie quarterback. Well, look at what C.J. Stroud did last year. Yeah, okay. Look at what Bryce Young did, right? I mean, if you look at the history of rookie quarterbacks, it is way more likely that they don't produce fantasy wide receivers than they do. Now, Caleb could be an outlier. We think he's a very special prospect. But even take that out of it, you are competing with 2 number ones who have led their team in target share their entire career.
Yeah.
DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, 2 alphas for their entire career. 2 guys who every year are demanding 130, 40, 50 targets. So where in the world do you fit in? Like what do you have to do to dominate in that offense? I struggle to see a breakout for a rookie wide receiver there, but I could be wrong. Another quick name I'll note, because I know we don't agree, is the Ravens. Hate the landing spot. Just hate it. I don't see the offense changing around Lamar. I don't see Mark Andrews stepping back, and I don't see someone overtaking Zay Flowers. What else you got here?
I have the Indianapolis Colts.
I agree.
I don't love this landing spot. I think it's probably one of the worst, and maybe it's because we haven't seen multiple fantasy wide receivers produce. It feels like in a long time outside of Peyton Manning here in this offense. And Anthony Richardson is a run-first type of quarterback. Yeah, we've only seen him play 2 games. Is that going to change? One of the biggest things is his touch. His accuracy was a problem coming out of college. How's that improved? Maybe it has improved, maybe it hasn't, getting more chemistry. But once again, add one of these your favorite wide receivers to this offense with Michael Pittman, Josh Allen, Jonathan Taylor. Where is that workload getting carved out from? I don't love it.
I can imagine people yelling at you in the comment section right now saying Shane Steichen supported AJ Brown, supported Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert. But I'm with you, dude. This spot really concerns me because we have no history from Anthony Richardson in his entire career to suggest to us that he could even support 1 fantasy wide receiver on a full season. So you are betting a lot on his number 2, maybe his number 3 if Downs is going to take another step.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't love that landing spot either. I'm with you. Let's go to the tight ends. I would put, it's a little obvious. Like, I don't like the Falcons. I'm not a big fan of the Browns. I just don't see a tight end really succeeding there. Is there any other names you wanted to talk about? Maybe the Packers?
Yeah, I'll say
they just got Musgrave and Kraft last year.
Yeah, the Packers. I mean, I would also throw in these are the obvious ones, right? Like the Cardinals. I would say the Bills are also 2 landing spots that we would hate for the tight end position. But one that I think it's also underrated that I think a team could get a tight end would probably be the Rams. I don't love the Rams landing spot, and I just don't see the success of a tight end being produced in that offense with Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp and Kyron Williams, unfortunately. And now that could be a 2nd round Benson Knott, or insert your favorite tight end hypothetically in the 2nd round. Is that Brock Bowers? Do they trade up to get somebody like him because they love him so much? I'm not saying that's going to happen, but if Brock Bowers goes to this offense, I'm not sure if I would love it unless Cooper Kupp leaves. But anything could happen here. But that's kind of who I have at the moment.
Okay, yeah. I actually like the Rams, but I hear you. I hear you. I mean, what the top 5 seasons McVay's had for Tyler Higbee, I still hold on to that little bit of hope.
Davis Allen, come on.
Davis Allen. Well, they signed Colby Parkinson for a stupid amount of money, so GG's. But that's it for today, guys. We appreciate you. Do us a huge favor. Hit that like button to show some love, and we'll see you very soon. We appreciate you. Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, L-A-N-D, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy. Even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.